Hello everyone, and welcome to Day 2 Exclusive. And I get the honor and privilege to get to interview one of my good friends, Michael Helwig.
Well, the honor's all mine, Jeremy.
Oh, it's so great to see you. I feel like it's been many years since I've seen you, or it feels that way.
It probably has been many years. It's been 4 years, I think, at least, since I've been out on the road.
Wow. And he's filling in with the Blackwood Brothers this week, and so thrilled to get to see them tonight, and so thrilled to get to sit down and talk with you tonight.
Yeah.
And just find out a little bit about what's happening in your world and everything like that. I remember the very first time that I actually ever heard you sing was not actually in person. It was on a CD of the Dixie Echoes, the Live in Silver Dollar City CD.
Yes, great album.
Two years later, I think for me, Billy Blackwood announces your name as the new lead singer, and I'm like, I've got to hear this guy. He can sing tenor, and then he can sing lead. So this guy must have an incredible range.
And I sang baritone with the Stamps.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, for almost 4 years.
So that's going to be one of the questions that we're going to get into. I'm looking forward to it. Now, how did you get started in gospel music?
Well, when I was, we had talked about my transition between colleges, and after I came back from my semester at Pensacola Christian College, which is where my kids are attending right now, all three of them. So after I came back from that, I was in church, and a bunch of guys, I had actually sung in church that morning. I sang "We Shall See Jesus" by the
Cathedrals.
The Cathedrals, yeah, the one Glenn Payne made famous. And so I'd sung that in church that morning, and after, a bunch of guys about my age came up to me and asked me if I had ever considered singing. They had a little small quartet that they were working on, and they needed a tenor singer.
Okay.
So after the service was over, we went to the piano and went over a few songs that they did, and I was able to hit the notes, relatively well. So that was my first gig in gospel music, was just being a weekend warrior and going to school and working a full-time job and or a part-time job rather, and all that. So there was that, and then after that I got married while I was singing with them, and our twins were born. Our firstborn daughters, Eva and Laura, they were born. And I thought that it would be responsible for me to quit this weekend nonsense and just focus on the family and making money for the family and all that. So I did about 3 years of nothing, and then a gentleman by the name of Mike Moran called me and wanted me to sing with the tenor with the Torchman Quartet.
I've heard of that.
That's from St. Catharines.
Canada, I believe.
Yep, from St. Catharines, and I spent a while thinking about that and decided to go for it. I did that, and of course that brought me to the National Quartet Convention. At the time they were still singing on the main stage. They had a slot on the main stage there. And so I was able to kind of, schmooze with a lot of the people that were backstage and this and that, and decided a few years later that, I might want to think about doing this for a living.
Yes. So
1 year at convention, I put together a demo CD of myself, and I went around and talked to as many people as I could. I talked to everyone from Ernie Haas, who was just, I'm trying to remember, he was just starting Signature Sound that year.
Okay, so that had been about about 1999 or 2000, somewhere
in there, yeah. Anyway, so I spoke with him, and then I spoke with a guy, like all kind of people in between, and some that I'd never heard of before, like a guy named Jackie Wilburn. I spoke with him on the recommendation of some friends of mine who said he was a really upright man and would be a good man to work for and a good gig. Like, they had a bigger following than I had, because I'd never heard of him, being from Canada. So anyway, I spoke with him and gave him a demo, and I thought for sure, if this was to be, I would get a call that year, or that's, after that convention, and things would go, but they didn't. And I didn't get a call, didn't get anything. And, a year went by, and I had forgotten about everything, went back to convention the next year with the Torchman, and didn't give out any CDs, didn't go out of my way to talk with anybody, nothing. And a fellow by the name of Gary Casto came up to me that year, and I didn't know who he was from Adam, and he said, you're Mike Helwig? And I said, yes. He says, Jackie Wilburn wants to talk to you. I'm thinking, going through the Rolodex in my brain, and I'm thinking, who's Jackie Wilburn again? I can't remember. I spoke to so many people there last year. So anyhow, I spoke with him, and we went off into a side room there, and I sang with them, and they said, all right, well, we'll let you know. And I thought, well, this is odd. So I went back home, went back to work. I was sitting there at my desk. I was working at a carpet store, flooring store rather, and I was sitting at my desk, and I get a call, and it's Jackie Wilburn. And he says, we'd like to hire you. So long story short, or short story long, I guess, that was my first professional gig with gospel music, and the people that told me about Jackie were right. He was an amazing, upright fella to work for.
And now a recently inducted Hall of Fame member.
Yes,
yes,
absolutely.
Actually just this year, Southern Gospel Music Hall of Fame. The third time that I heard you after the Blackwoods was on a CD album called Let It Rain Live, the very last CD album that Wilburns did. And the first song I heard you do was Go Tell the World.
Yep.
Yes. So I've heard you with them. It's amazing how many people that I had no idea you had sang with, or so many variety of groups. Speaking of which, how many groups have you actually sang with?
Boy, let me think. Do I have enough fingers and toes? I'm going to take off my shoes here. You see, the Shame, the Torchmen, the Wilburns, Stamps. After the Stamps was the Williamsons.
That's what I was
then
wondering. I think.
Music City Trio with what's his first name? Beatty is his last. Woody Beatty.
Okay. Yes.
Then Mark Blackwood. Blackwood Quartet, I think he was calling it. After Mark was the Dixie Echoes.
Okay, so there was, I'd heard you a little bit with the Williamsons off of CD projects, and I actually had met David Felinas about the time you had just, I think, departed from them, either maybe a year prior to him coming or something about that. I first heard them.
To the Dixie Echoes?
No, to the Williamsons.
Oh, okay.
And so that must have been just right in there before you went to the Dixie Echoes. I was kind of a little puzzled about what happened in between the groups you sang with. The Blackwood, you said.
And then the
Quartet.
Blackwood Brothers after the Dixie Echoes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that has been how many, 7 or 8 groups?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, and some of the most prominent names out there.
Yeah.
It's amazing, you know. Wow. Now, what advice would you really give a young person starting out in the Southern gospel music industry?
Don't.
I've heard that before by more than one person.
You can make a lot more money somewhere else. But if you absolutely must, and you are absolutely sure that this is where God's calling you, and that right there is the key, Jeremy, because a lot of people say in their mind, and they'll lie to themselves, and my grandpa used to say the worst person you can lie to is yourself. That's true. But they'll lie to themselves, and they'll convince themselves that this is where God wants them, and it's not. Okay, so you've got to be sure that this is where God wants you, first and foremost. And secondly, you aren't going to be making bank. All right, it's just not going to happen. It happens to a small percentage. It's like any other show business or entertainment business sort of thing, in the sense that there are very, very few people that make it big. And making it big can mean a lot of things, but what it does mean more than anything else is you're able to make some money off financially off of your shows. Yeah, it shows in your bank statements.
Right.
So keep that in mind. You're probably going to be making, around the minimum wage-esque sort of money to begin with, and it's not going to go up substantially from there, no matter how many years you spend in it, unless you're able to do one of 3 things. Number 1, get with a big name group. that's able to pay you what you're actually worth.
That's good advice.
Number two, you spend a number of years, say a decade, maybe a little bit more, with a quartet or a trio or whatever, and build somewhat of a name up for yourself, which is easy to do these days with social media the way it is.
Social media, digital assets.
Yeah, and then go solo, because you don't have to worry about 3 other families to feed.
That's true.
Or 4. All right, and you can make decent money that way. And number 3 is, kind of a mix of the other 2. Get with a group that is well known but doesn't have as much overhead, i.e., they do all of their bookings and that kind of stuff in-house, and they're good at it, and they're able to, they don't have another person with their hand in the pot there.
Makes it a little bit lower overhead of it.
Yeah,
because they're not paying a booking agent.
They're not driving a big bus. They're driving like a Sprinter van or something like that.
Pulling a trailer.
Yeah, pulling a trailer. And there may be a trio instead of a quartet, one less family to feed. So there's ways you can do it that way. But if money is not of your concern at all, okay, and I get flack for this all the time, but if you have a family, i.e. a wife or a wife and kids, you've got to be responsible. You've got to be responsible, so money has to factor into it.
True.
And so that would be my generic advice to young people wanting to get into this, is be smart about it. Don't just think about the stage and the lights, because that's an amazing feeling, and man, it's like a drug. You can get hooked on it.
Yes.
You've got to think of your family and someone other than yourself.
Very good advice.
Yeah.
Honestly, out of a lot of the people we've talked to and sat down with, there's only been a few others that's actually described what I like to call the behind-the-scenes, everyday job part of Southern gospel music. Many people say, remember the calling and everything to do with that, because that's the most important part. But there is a business side to it.
Absolutely.
And you can go broke trying to remain in your calling if you don't take into account certain business things and assets. Very good advice. Now, for those who do not know, explain your journey and what happened with ALS.
Well, the long form or the short form?
Honestly, whatever you feel like sharing.
You can fix it in post. I started losing my balance. That was the first thing. And I have always been a man that has had very good balance, exceptional. But I started to lose my balance, and then I started having trouble moving the toes on my right foot. And if you know anything about balance, that's one of the main things you need to do is be able to move your toes,
hands and toes. Yes.
And so then, of course, my balance got worse, and then I started falling. It was at that point where we decided to go see the doctor about this and see what was going on. And through, it was a little over a year of all kinds of tests and poking and prodding and shooting me with needles with electricity and trying to get things to jump and move and do what they wanted to do, to drawing spinal fluid. And I'm telling you right now, if you've never ever had a spinal tap, they call it, drawing spinal fluid, I'm sure there's a Latin name for it or some kind, but I don't know it. It is just horrible. It's not the worst thing I've ever been through, but it's exceedingly uncomfortable. Let's go with that.
Wow.
So I went through all of this, and they eliminated all kind of different diseases that it could be, and they were stuck with the only one that it could be, and that was Amyotrophic Lateral Sclerosis, ALS, which is also, for the viewers that may not know, is Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yes.
Named after the famous New York baseball player, who had it.
Now, what does exactly ALS entail as far as it's of course, God only knows is the final one ruling over what happens with anyone, but what does it exactly entail as far as a disease, on what the ultimate outcome could be possibly, or anything
Well, the
like that?
ultimate outcome in 99% is death. Probably 99.9% is death. And once you have ALS, you're never cured of it. Basically, what it does, for those who don't know, is it just turns off your muscles one by one by one by one until you're to the point where you cannot eat because you can't swallow or chew, and then eventually you can't breathe. One or the other will happen first. Now, there are ways you can avoid, say, the eating thing. You can get a feeding tube put in, but that's just prolonging the inevitable.
Right.
And or you can get a trach put in, which is, again, just prolonging the inevitable. And the trach is so difficult to maintain. Every few minutes, they've got to pull the hose out, and you can't breathe with the hose out, and they've got to clean it out and all that, and then reattach it. And, it is... It just, I guess it depends on how long you want to live. And I mean, what's the quality of your life at that point? You're laying in bed, you can't move anything, and you need a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week caregiver.
I actually have a friend, and he was diagnosed 21 years ago with ALS.
Yep.
And currently he is almost what you could call to the last stage of breathing problems.
Yeah.
He's in a wheelchair, he cannot speak.
Yep.
The inevitable is soon coming, unless God chooses otherwise.
Right.
You know, which could easily happen because our God is still a healer.
That's right.
He's still in the miracle working business.
That's right. Well, at my worst, I was in bed. I could not move anything from the waist down, and I could not control my arms very well. I was having serious trouble eating. But I was not, I had decided that I had a DNR, which is a do not resuscitate order, and I had decided I was not going to take the feeding tube, and I was not going to take the breathing aid, the trach. I was just going to, and I was hoping, because after a certain period of time, you stop getting hunger pains, you know?
Yes.
And so I thought, you know, drowning's terrible. I don't want to stop breathing and not being able to breathe, because that had happened to me once already at that point, to where I was really struggling breathing one night, and that's another story all on its own.
Wow.
But so I did not want to go through that again, and I thought, you know, starving to death would probably be the easiest way. So I wasn't going to do any of that. I was just going to, you know, lay there and starve to death. I thought that would probably be the most humane way for me to go. Yeah. So
Wow.
that's what it does. It just turns off all of your muscles until you can no longer swallow or breathe.
So what is the greatest struggle that you face daily with ALS right now?
Right now, mental, emotional, and even sometimes spiritual.
Yes.
You know, when I was given the diagnosis, all of a sudden, everything I had worked for my life in gospel music, and it was taken from me. I don't have a job in gospel music. I don't have anything concrete to do, or I'm not writing for the Singing News anymore. I'm not, you know, there's nothing there. There's nothing left for me, and I really started to get depressed.
Yes.
When it comes to that. So in order to go back a little bit on that, I think 1 or 2 questions ago, that's when I started to really, it started to really affect me mentally and spiritually, and I started to get upset and ask why is this happening to me? I was ready to die. I was completely resolved mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That's what was going to happen, and you know, I was able to handle that, and when I started asking why, when I started second guessing God in that respect, and it affected me mentally and emotionally and spiritually, was when I was granted this reversal. It's, for lack of a better term, it's kind of like a patient, a cancer patient going into remission.
Okay.
Okay. It's not the same thing at all, but that's just kind of a visual. It helps
Right.
people understand what it is. A reversal on an ALS patient is when some of the symptoms reverse, just like it sounds. And for some people, it's as small as being able to move a finger or a toe, or maybe being able to move your leg at the knee or your arm at the elbow, or maybe being able to speak again after not having been able to speak for, a year.
Right.
And sometimes, in rare cases, it's as major as myself, where you're able to get up and walk again with the aid of a walker or a cane. Now, sometimes this reversal lasts for a few hours. Sometimes it lasts a few days, weeks, months, years. And then in extremely rare occasions, too, that are documented, it lasts long enough for the person to die of something completely unrelated.
Wow.
Yeah. And neither of those were getting hit by a bus.
I've never heard of that. So thank you. That's very interesting. And thankfully, God has allowed that to happen, so you can go back and sing, and we can sit here and talk with you tonight.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
tremendous. I'm so thankful that has happened. It's tremendous.
Myself included.
Yes.
Mostly for my family's sake.
Yes.
I get some more time with them in order to help rewrite some of the wrongs.
Two more questions, and we're winding it down. I wanted to ask you about your watchmaking. You've been posting about that on your page, and I've seen that. So what are you doing in your spare time?
Well,
currently?
just that. Watchmaking, jewelry repair, and custom jewelry making. But this came from, I've always been a mechanic. I've always had a mechanical mind. I worked on cars all my life. And, for anybody who knows, like, a transmission in an automobile is just a series of gears, and a manual transmission especially is just a series of gears and shafts and stuff like that. And a mechanical watch, or a self-winding watch, they call them automatics, is the same thing. It's just a bunch of gears. It's like a microscopic automotive transmission. So it wasn't really that big a leap for me.
Okay, I see what you're saying, I think.
To go from that to watchmaking.
Small. Yes.
And watch repair. So I've been doing that, and I've sold, like I said, 5 watches. I have got this beauty for sale.
Oh, wow.
This is it's a Seiko day date, and that's a gorgeous little piece.
Yes, it is.
And that one I'd like to have $120 for.
Okay. At the end, we'll ask you about contact, so you can tell the people.
Yeah.
If you want to purchase a watch or jewelry or anything like that, this is the man to talk to right
That's
here.
right. I do my best.
Custom work and everything.
I fixed a watch recently for Chris Jenkins of the Kingsmen.
Yes.
And he posted a really nice review on Facebook for me for that. So that was wonderful. It was his grandfather's watch. So we restored it.
So that might be something to be interested in.
We restored it and got it working for him, and got the band fixed. There was some issues with the bracelet. So
once again, before our last question, I want to thank you for being open and transparent about that. One final question. We ask everyone this, but any of us could go by the grave at any time. The rapture of the church could occur at any time.
Yep.
I believe it's so close. But if you have to go by the grave, what would you want your life to say to people you've lived before and seen before?
What would you want? What would I want people to think of me after I kick the bucket?
That's a good way of rephrasing that. I like it into layman's terms.
There you go.
I like it.
When I'm pushing up daisies, I'd like people to say, you know what, he wasn't perfect, but he did his dead level best to live like Christ.
Yes.
And that's really it.
How can people go about contacting you?
All right. Well, I'm not going to give my phone number out.
I understand.
For obvious reasons. You can, the best way is I have 2 Facebook accounts, if you will. One is my standard, everyday, issue Facebook account, Michael Helwig. I would encourage people not to go to that one because I'm already at 5,000 and I can't take any more friends.
Thankfully, I'm still on there. Thankfully.
Yes, yes.
Thankfully.
But you can contact me through Michael K. Helwig, which is my, for lack of a better term, this is what they call it, fan page.
Fan page.
Okay, Michael K. Helwig, and I am unlimited in how many people can join that page. So right now it's less than half of what my regular Facebook page has, which I can't quite understand. So what I need to do is go on there and delete some people.
That's the good way to do it. If they want to contact you or for any possible work or anything like that, do they send you a message?
Absolutely. Messenger is wonderful for that.
That's the best
so,
way.
Yeah, get to be click like on my fan page, Michael K. Helwig. K is my middle initial, and then you can send me a message on Messenger. You could email me if you wanted at mhelwig2000, which kind of dates me. That's the year I opened the account. Okay. mhelwig2000 at Yahoo. That also dates me. .com.
Yes. I'm still with Yahoo, so it's
yeah. mhelwig2000 at yahoo.com, and make sure that you put in what do you call it? The subject bar, something that distinguishes you from the junk mail out there.
Yes.
Okay. Just write what, fan for my fan page.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good way.
SG fan. How about that? You're a fan of gospel music.
Fan of gospel music.
And that will distinguish you from the quick delete, 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 as you do, and you're just trying to get through it all because there's so much junk mail out there. So that will help distinguish you. Just put SG fan, as in you're a fan of gospel music, not me specifically, but a fan of gospel music, and I'll be able to go, oh, stop. I'm not going to delete that one. I'm going to read it.
That's the way to do it.
Yep.
Mr. Michael Helwig, thank you so
Jeremy,
much for sitting down
it
with
has
us
been
and
a
talking
pleasure.
with us today. It has been an honor, and everyone, it's been a great show, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Exclusive.